Bill Oram's had an interesting last couple of days. He covers the Lakers for The Athletic, and Bill, kind enough to join us. How would you describe the last couple of days there, Bill?
Oh, very low key, Dan. Just very, very low key. It does turn out that when LeBron James uh, says something about you or tweets about you, other people want to say things about you and tweet about you. So I've had a lot of that over the last few days, but otherwise pretty good. 80 degrees in Los Angeles yesterday.
Okay, but tell the audience what you reported and why LeBron James reacted to that, or how he did.
Well, so I mean, obviously, after his comments at All-Star Weekend about potentially returning to Cleveland and his various praise for other executives on the heels of the Lakers not making a move at the trade deadline, there was a lot of tea leaf reading and a lot of interpretation. And we're talking about LeBron James, who's one of the master tweakers in the history of the organizations he works for, and subtweets and sort of trying to push buttons kind of behind the scenes. And so, I reported, several things kind of reported related to LeBron, including, that the subtext is that within the Lakers organization and sort of, along with the trend of the rest of the NBA, and LeBron helped usher this in, he has more power within the Lakers organization than any player ever has. And that includes Kobe Bryant. And so what I, basically wrote was that LeBron was using that platform in that moment to sort of apply pressure to the Lakers to get what he wanted from the Lakers, whatever that might be, whatever his vision, whether it's a contract extension, whether it's just to kind of hold the Lakers' feet to the fire a little bit more and remind them that he could potentially leave if things don't go his way. And then in the aftermath of that, of course, LeBron, basically wrote that no one should listen to me, I guess. But we talked about it. We're good.
But how was that? So he pulls you aside and just wants to have a heart-to-heart, man-to-man conversation?
I would just say we talked about it in the hallway. He had his press conference and we had a conversation about it. And, I had a couple thoughts on it and he had a couple thoughts on it. And then, it seems like we landed in a pretty good place.
Yeah, because it doesn't take, that much time to connect the dots here of what he's saying, how he's saying it. And then all of a sudden, hey, you guys didn't do anything at the trade deadline. Well, let me ask you that. It almost felt like the Lakers said, look, LeBron, this is what you wanted. You deal with it. You wanted Anthony Davis. We gave up all those young players. We gave up picks. You wanted Russell Westbrook. We wanted Buddy Hield. You got it. Go, make the best of it. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely, a reasonable assessment. And also any change they were going to make, even if it was the John Wall trade, right? Which made a lot of sense. John Wall is also a client of Clutch Sports, which is Clutch is LeBron. LeBron is Clutch. Rich Paul runs Clutch Sports. That's a move that would have disadvantaged the Lakers, right? They would have had to give up that first round pick in 2027, or even a pick swap in 2027, which is. We don't know where the Lakers are going to be 5 years from now. That could end up being a really catastrophic pick swap. And so while you are in win now mode, I think there was also a real healthy dose of reality from the Lakers to say, we can be in win now mode all we want. We can't win now. So there is a little bit of get to the offseason, get to, make the best of this season. Maybe something breaks your way and maybe you could win a playoff series if something really breaks your way, but get to the postseason and then kind of lick your wounds and reassemble then.
Do you think LeBron ends his career as a Laker?
I would say yes. I think that there was some saber rattling over the All-Star weekend. I don't think LeBron wants to go anywhere. I don't think it makes sense for him to go anywhere. I don't know that if he were to leave at age 38, 39, he's going to find another organization that is willing to give him the same sort of equity, not obviously actual ownership, but ownership of action that the Lakers have, unless it is a scenario where he is, going somewhere where he is literally going to become a part of the ownership group upon retiring or something like that. But I do think there is a real strong chance. I'd probably put it like 60-40, right? I tip to him finishing his career with the Lakers. The Bronny element is fascinating, but I still think it makes the most sense for, this to sort of funnel Bronny to the Lakers at some point for a year or two. And because again, I don't know how many teams, I think you would have to be a team without a real direction or plan to say, well, our best path forward is to, draft draft Bronny James, assuming he's a draftable player, but not knowing really where he's going to be at that stage, how much of like a foundational type player he could be, and then to get a 40-year-old LeBron. Like if that's your best path forward, then you really probably are at total rock bottom as an NBA franchise.
That sounds like something the Knicks would do, Bill.
Like I said, you'd have to be a total rock bottom as an NBA franchise.
Yeah, I don't even know if Bronny can play at that level. I've watched high school games. Hell, I look good in high school, Bill. So I don't know. If I'm a team, do you call LeBron's bluff and you draft Bronny a lot higher than he would probably normally have gone?
I mean, I think that's the thing that people I mean, we're still talking about LeBron 2 years from now. And while LeBron is still putting up massive numbers, he's averaging, he's averaging MVP caliber numbers. He's had way more injuries than he's had in his career. He's started to look his age a little bit more. Even if you watched the other night in the loss to New Orleans, he didn't seem to have the same burst. And he mentioned, kind of acknowledged that he, didn't look great, even though he had 32 points. I think that knee's bothering him. So this year he's had the knee, he's had an ab strain, he's had an ankle injury. Last year he had the bad ankle injury. So these things are starting to add up. So who even knows where LeBron's going to be in 2 years, and whether a team is going to see that 2-for-1 deal as the steal that we might think of it now.
How are the Clippers, by the way?
They're fun, right? I mean, we saw them last week against the Lakers, and again against we'll see them again this week. That's a really fascinating team because they kind of like before they got Kawhi and Paul George, they have such a strong identity that sort of transcends their stars. And then you can bring those stars in, so if Kawhi, PG, Norman Powell, if there's a scenario those guys got back for a play-in for the postseason, it would be a really unbelievable development, and it would really add some spice to the postseason.
How would you rate Steph Curry's All-Star performance?
I mean, just all time. I mean, he's just all time. I mean, I don't know what benchmark to judge things happening in an All-Star game. Like, he could make 33s in an All-Star game, and I don't know that I would be like that bowled over. But to see him just go out and have that kind of performance, knock down all those threes, the joy that he brings to the game, watching everybody else kind of embrace him. He is, we get very caught up in LeBron and, Kevin Durant, but Steph Curry has, really dominated this decade, and to have kind of that sort of signature performance on an exhibition stage, I think is just like one of those other feathers in the cap of a Hall of Fame career.
And I've said this before, I don't know if you agree, but I'll bring it up, that Michael had such an impact. In fact, the NBA is still trying to kind of get out from his shadow there. But what Steph Curry has done, he's done more for more basketball players than I think Michael's style. Michael entertained us, but we couldn't do that. Mm-hmm. We feel like we can do what Steph Curry does, and I think he'll have a greater impact on the game, actual playing, than Michael will. What do you think?
It's funny. We had a conversation in an interview setting with Malik Monk a few weeks ago, and we were asking Malik Monk, who has had a great year for the Lakers, whether he was disappointed he wasn't in the slam dunk contest, and he said, "No, like I'm more disappointed I wasn't in the 3-point contest." And it's like, why? Why? The slam dunk contest is so much cooler. And he was like, and our point was because anybody can shoot a 3-pointer, and he's like, not like me. And I think that is the kind of the same idea where Steph Curry took this thing that felt very relatable and that anybody could like go out on the court and do, and you could sort of feel like Steph if you knocked one down, and he's made it feel cooler than dunking. He's made it feel as unreachable as, jumping, higher than you could jump, because he does it at such an unbelievable level. And the video that was going around from pregame the other day, where he made 13 straight shots, he did his whole shooting routine from every distance, moving all the way back up to half court and then all the way back into the paint, was, just, I do think we take for granted, like, that he has actually perfected the most fundamental skill of basketball.
And maybe Ja Morant will bring back the dunk because, for a smaller guy, he attacks the hoop like Derrick Rose did when he first came into the NBA. And everybody wants to shoot threes. Ja's bringing it every night. He's bringing it to anybody, everybody.
Well, and like people will always love a small guy who can dunk, I mean, to see Ja at his size, fly through the air, and like you said, at anybody over great shot blockers, the best shot blockers in the league, he is, completely. I mean, dunking, I think at a certain point got kind of passe, right?
Yeah.
Like you watch the dunk contest, they're kind of out of moves to do. You can only go between your legs so many times, behind your back, off the bounce, off the backboard, off the side of the backboard. We've seen it all, but we haven't really seen a guy. I mean, even D Rose didn't put it down on guys like we've seen Ja do over these couple of years he's been in the league. I mean, he is to me one of the 3 or 4 guys in the NBA I would pay my own money to go sit in the nosebleeds just to watch play basketball.
Who are the others?
Oof. Can I have 5?
Yeah, sure.
LeBron, Steph.
Oh, are you saying LeBron just because you got to be nice to him now?
No, LeBron James is still worth the price of admission. Come on. Very much worth the price of admission.
Okay, all right. You're kissing
LeBron,
up to
Steph,
LeBron.
KD, and Giannis Jokic. Both are in there.
Okay. All right.
That's 6.
Yeah. I people are talking about DeMar DeRozan. I said, when's the last time an MVP candidate didn't have a highlight that you remembered? And DeMar DeRozan doesn't have any highlight. He doesn't make the highlights. It's just you look at the box score and you go, man, he scored 30 again. Jokic, it feels like his passing stands out more than anything else. John Morant is going to have signature plays here. The Greek Freak has signature play. I don't know how much that factors in, with MVP voters of the style, the being a performer. That goes along with how valuable you are to your team.
I think it helps just in the sense of having, something in your mind's eye, right? Like the kind of that signature moment or that defining sort of characteristic or trait. I mean, DeMar DeRozan's game has never been flashy or that highlight worthy. It's always been sort of, it's been accumulation. Like, oh man, he knocked down nine mid-range jumpers, or he finally shot some threes. Whatever he does has never been flashy. And what it's been to me has been the accumulation and the consistency with that Bulls team. The Bulls obviously being atop the the East, and having really come out of nowhere. I mean, I don't think anybody saw them as a contender or having a good offseason, but it felt like, you overpay for DeMar, who knows about Lonzo and Caruso, and everything they did has hit. And so DeMar's in the conversation, not only because he's individually playing like an MVP, but because he's elevated his team. But you're right in the sense that I don't think highlights win MVPs, but I do think having sort of memorable moments and memorable games to sort of stick in voters' minds does matter. But I almost feel like DeMar's numbers and the fact that he kind of has come out of nowhere this season. I mean, always a very good player, every year a borderline all-star, but then now be putting up the numbers that he's putting up, to me, that is almost the highlight. The highlight is the fact you can't disregard him. You don't forget him because it's been so unexpected for him this year. Yeah,
it's almost like an overnight sensation that took 10 years in the making with DeMar DeRozan. Play nice this week, Bill, okay?
I'll try.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Dan.
Bill Oram, the Lakers writer for The Athletic. You imagine you write this, and then all of a sudden you had some people who were upset with Bill Oram, and then LeBron says, hey, come here. LeBron wants to talk to you. And, while he said, hey, I wasn't the source of this story, and, that somebody was, and sources run the game and all of those things. But, this is what you do when you get stared down by somebody. And it's happened to me before. When you report something, Lawrence Taylor, I thought was going to punch me when I was covering him when he had to have a press conference talking about being suspended, cocaine use.